Welcome, dear listener, to another gentle evening on Mindleapic. Here we share only the quietest corners of the past, places where time moves slowly, where the days are soft and ordinary, and where the simplest routines can carry you gently toward sleep. If this little journey feels peaceful to you tonight, please consider leaving a kind like on the video. It helps the channel continue bringing these calm historical moments to you. And if you enjoy falling asleep to these stories, subscribing means you'll never miss a new one. Just tap the button. It takes only a second. While you settle in, I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Perhaps a quiet apartment in New York, a cozy cottage in the English countryside, a home in Toronto with snow softly falling outside, or somewhere else entirely. Drop the name of your city or country in the comments. It's always comforting to imagine so many of us resting together across the miles. Now, take a slow breath in and let it out gently. Dim the lights if you can. Pull the blanket a little higher. Rest your head on the pillow and allow your shoulders to soften. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. Just let the words drift over you, like a warm breeze across open fields. Tonight we travel back more than 200 years, to a small family farm in the rolling countryside of Colonial, Pennsylvania, in the year 1765. The world beyond the wooden fences is changing, but here life stays steady and slow. The days are built from small, familiar tasks. The sound of a wooden bucket set down, the creak of a porch chair, the soft crackle of a hearth fire at dusk. The farmhouse is simple, built of squared logs, chinked with clay and moss, its roof steep and shingled with wooden shakes weathered to a gentle gray. A stone chimney rises from one end, smoke curling lazily into the pale morning sky. Nearby stands a small barn, its wide doors open to let the cool air move through. A kitchen garden sleeps under a thin blanket of early frost, sage and thyme still holding their quiet scent. Our story begins on an ordinary October morning, just as the first pale light touches the eastern edge of the fields. The family rises slowly. No hurry, no clamor. A single candle burns on the wide plank table, its flame steady and small. The mother moves first, wrapping a wool shawl around her shoulders, stirring the embers in the great stone fireplace until they blush orange again. She adds 2 small logs, watches them catch, listens to the soft pop of dry wood. Outside, the air is crisp and clean. A light mist rests low over the meadow, softening the shapes of the haystacks that stand like patient watchers. A few late crickets still sing, their voices low and sleepy. The father steps onto the porch, his boots making a gentle thud on the wide boards. He carries an iron lantern, its tin reflector catching the candle glow from inside. He pauses, breathes deeply, lets the cool air fill his lungs. The dog, an old brown farm collie, rises stiffly from the rug by the door, stretches, and follows him down the steps toward the barn. The children will wake soon, but not yet. For now the house is quiet, only the soft clink of the iron poker, the rustle of dry corn husks in the mattress ticking, the faint creak of the wide floorboards settling in the morning chill. Everything here is slow, deliberate, familiar. The same tasks, the same paths, the same soft sounds, day after day, season after season. And tonight, we will walk through one complete day, moment by gentle moment, letting each hour unfold without rush, without worry, until the stars return and the fire burns low, and sleep comes naturally. The father walks the short path to the barn, lantern swinging gently at his side. Each step is measured. The ground is firm underfoot, still holding the night's chill. The collie pads beside him, tail low and slow, nose close to the earth. No barking, no rush, only the soft crunch of dry leaves and the distant call of one, early crow-high in the oak tree near the creek. Inside the barn the air is warmer, thick with the sweet smell of hay and the earthy scent of animals waking. A single beam of pale light slips through a crack in the wallboards and falls across the dirt floor in a thin golden line. The cow stands quietly in her stall, chewing slowly, her large, dark eyes calm. She turns her head a little as the father sets the lantern on a wooden peg. The light spreads, soft and yellow, touching the rough manger and the pile of straw nearby. He speaks to her in a low voice, the same few words every morning. "Easy now, Bess." She lowers her head again and resumes her slow chewing. He pulls the three-legged stool close, places the wooden bucket beneath her, and begins the milking. The rhythm is steady and unhurried. Stream, pause, stream, pause. The milk makes a soft hissing sound as it hits the bottom of the bucket, then a deeper, richer tone as the level rises. The sound is regular, almost like a lullaby made of liquid. Every few moments he rests his forehead lightly against her warm side. The warmth travels through his wool cap and into his skin. Outside, the mist is beginning to thin. Long fingers of sunlight reach across the meadow now, turning the frost into tiny points of silver that sparkle for a brief minute before melting away. Back in the house, the mother has set the iron kettle over the fire. Water inside begins its slow journey toward warmth. She moves to the corner cupboard, takes down a small sack of cornmeal, and sifts a measured amount into a wide wooden bowl. Her hands are steady. She adds a pinch of salt from the small crock on the shelf, then a spoonful of lard kept soft near the hearth. With a wooden spoon, she stirs in just enough hot water from the kettle to make a thick batter. No hurry. The spoon moves in slow circles, scraping the sides of the bowl with a gentle scrape-scrape sound. The two younger children stir at last. First, the girl, 7 years old, with hair the color of ripe wheat. She sits up on the low trundle bed, rubs her eyes with small fists, then pulls the quilt around her shoulders like a cloak. She watches her mother without speaking. The boy, 5, remains curled on his side a moment longer, thumb near his mouth, breathing slow and even. The mother glances over, smiles the smallest smile, and returns to her stirring. The hearth fire has grown now. Flames lick quietly around the logs. Tiny sparks drift upward and vanish before they can reach the chimney throat. The room fills with the comforting smell of wood smoke and cornmeal warming. The mother shapes the batter into small flat cakes and places them on the hot griddle that rests across the coals. Each cake sizzles softly when it touches the iron. The sound is gentle, almost secretive. She turns them once with a thin wooden spatula, careful not to break the golden edges. Outside, the father finishes the milking. The bucket is nearly full, its surface smooth and creamy. He stands, stretches his back with a quiet sigh, then carries the bucket toward the house. The collie follows, pausing now and then to sniff at a tuft of grass or a fallen acorn. The path is well worn, a shallow groove in the earth made by hundreds of mornings just like this one. When he reaches the porch, he sets the bucket down on the wide bottom step. Steam rises in slow curls from the warm milk. He wipes his hands on the legs of his homespun trousers, then opens the door. Cool air rushes in behind him, stirring the candle flame for a moment. The mother looks up from the griddle. "Morning, John." "Morning, Sarah." No more words are needed. They have spoken this greeting every day for 15 years. The children hear their father's voice and come fully awake. The girl slips off the bed, bare feet touching the cold floorboards. She pads across the room to stand near her mother, watching the cakes turn golden. The boy follows more slowly, dragging the edge of his nightshirt, eyes still heavy with sleep. The family gathers around the long table. It is made of pine, wide enough for all of them, its surface worn smooth by years of meals and mending and children's hands. 5 trenchers, shallow wooden plates, are already set out. The mother lifts the warm corn cakes onto them, one by one. She pours milk from the bucket into 5 pewter cups. The milk is still warm from the cow, rich and slightly sweet. They sit. No one speaks for a long moment. Only the soft scrape of wooden spoons against wood, the quiet sipping of milk, the occasional crackle from the fire. The girl breaks her cake in half, steam rising from the soft center. She blows on it gently before taking the smallest bite. The boy watches her, then does the same. The parents eat more slowly still, chewing each mouthful many times, letting the simple food settle warm inside them. Through the small window panes, real glass, carefully saved for over 2 seasons. The morning light grows stronger. It falls across the table in soft squares, touching the children's hair, the mother's apron, the father's weathered hands resting on the edge of the table. Outside, the rooster crows once, twice, a low and unhurried sound. Somewhere in the distance, a cow answers with a single low moo. Breakfast passes without hurry. When the trenchers are empty, the mother rises first. She gathers the cups and carries them to the wooden wash basin near the back door. The father pushes back his chair, the legs scraping softly on the floor. He places a hand on each child's head for a moment. First the boy, then the girl, then walks outside again to begin the day's work. The children help clear the table. Small hands carry plates and cups. The mother pours warm water from the kettle over the dishes and scrubs them slowly with a bit of soft soap made from lye and lard. The soap smells faintly of herbs. She rinses each piece in a second basin, then sets them on the wide shelf to dry in the warming air. The morning is still young. The sun has climbed only a hand's width above the horizon. Dew still clings to the grass. The fields wait, patient and quiet, ready for the slow rhythm of another ordinary day. The father walks first to the woodpile behind the house. The pile is tall and neatly stacked, logs of oak and hickory cut last winter, seasoned now to a pale gray on the outside. He selects 3 medium pieces, lifts them one at a time with both hands, and carries them to the chopping block. The block is an old stump, wide and flat-topped, its surface marked with hundreds of clean axe scars. He sets the logs upright, one after another, takes the broad axe from where it leans against the shed wall. The handle is smooth from years of use, the iron head bright from careful sharpening. He swings slowly, not hard, not fast. Each stroke is measured, the blade biting deep but clean. Wood splits with a soft, dry crack. Never loud, always expected. Chips fall in gentle arcs, pale inside, fragrant with the clean smell of fresh split timber. The collie lies nearby on the dry grass, chin on paws, watching without moving. Every so often a small chip lands close. The dog twitches an ear but stays still. When the kindling is ready, small, even pieces, he gathers an armful and carries it back toward the house. He pauses at the garden edge. The rows are mostly bare now, October having taken the last of the beans and squash. Only a few hardy kale plants remain. A single row of leeks stands tall, white stems half buried in the soft earth. He kneels briefly, brushes dirt from one thick stem, then decides to leave them another day or two. The soil is cool under his fingers. He wipes his hands on his trousers and continues on. Inside, the mother has moved to the spinning wheel in the corner by the window. It is a tall walking wheel, its great rim turned by hand, the spindle high and delicate. She sits on a low stool, feet bare on the wide floorboard. A basket of carded wool rests at her side. Soft, pale gray, pulled into long, even rovings. She draws out a thin strand, twists it gently between thumb and finger, then lets the wheel's slow turn catch and wind it. The wheel hums softly as it spins, a low, steady drone that fills the room like a heartbeat. The sound is comforting, unchanging, familiar. The girl sits cross-legged on the floor nearby, holding a small drop spindle of her own. It is a simple one, turned from applewood, weighted with a round stone at the bottom. She practices the same motion her mother makes, but slower, more careful. Sometimes the thread breaks. She stops, splices the ends with damp fingers, and begins again without frustration. The boy has found a wooden bowl and a handful of dried beans saved from summer. He pours them from one side to the other, listening to the soft clatter, then pours them back. The sound is quiet, rhythmic, like tiny rain on a tin roof far away. Outside, the light has strengthened. The mist is gone now. The meadow glows a soft gold where the sun touches it. A light breeze moves through the tall grass near the fence line, making it bend and rise in slow waves. The whispering sound carries across the yard. Soft, endless, soothing. A few sparrows hop along the porch rail, pecking at crumbs left from breakfast. Their wings make tiny flutters when they move. The father returns with the kindling. He kneels at the hearth, adds the small pieces to the fire one by one. Each stick catches quickly, flames curling around it like gentle fingers. The fire brightens the room again, pushing back the last of the morning chill. He stands, brushes bark from his hands, then takes his wool hat from the peg by the door. Time for the fields. He walks past the barn to the lower meadow where the winter rye was sown last month. The green blades are short still, only a few inches high, but thick and even. They cover the dark earth like a soft blanket. He walks the length of the field slowly, boots sinking slightly into the damp soil. He checks the fence, running his hand along the split rail posts, feeling for loose nails or rotting wood. Everything holds firm. A single rail has shifted. He lifts it back into place, taps it down with the heel of his palm. Further along the edge grows a line of young apple trees planted 3 springs ago. Their trunks are still slender, wrapped in strips of old cloth to keep rabbits from chewing the bark. He inspects each one, touching the branches lightly. Buds are already forming, small, tight, waiting for next year's bloom. One tree has a broken twig. He pinches it off cleanly with his thumb and forefinger. The sap smells faintly sweet on his skin. The collie follows at a distance now, sometimes trotting ahead to sniff at a mole tunnel or a patch of clover. The father calls him once, softly, "Here, lad," and the dog returns, tail moving in slow arcs. They walk together back toward the house, pausing at the well. The father draws a bucket of cold water, splashes his face, then drinks from his cupped hands. The water is deep and sweet, carrying the faint taste of the limestone below the farm. By the time he reaches the porch again, the sun has climbed higher. Shadows are shorter now. The air has warmed enough that the wool hat feels heavy. He hangs it on the peg inside the door. The mother has moved. From spinning to the butter churn in the lean-to off the kitchen. The churn is tall, narrow, made of oak staves bound with iron hoops. She works the dasher up and down in a slow, even rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. The sound is muffled, steady, like distant footsteps on soft earth. She pauses now and then to wipe her brow with the back of her wrist. A small bead of sweat traces down her temple and disappears into the collar of her shift. The children have come outside too. The girl carries a small wooden pail to gather the last of the season's herbs, thyme and savory still green near the kitchen door. She pinches the leaves carefully, breathing in their sharp, clean scent before dropping them into the pail. The boy follows her, collecting fallen acorns from under the big oak. He lines them up on the porch step in neat rows, counting them under his breath. The morning moves forward without hurry. Every task is small. Every sound is gentle. The farm breathes slowly around them. Fields, house, barn, garden, family, all joined in the same calm rhythm. No one counts the hours. There is only this moment, then the next, each one soft and complete in itself. The mother continues with the butter churn for a long while yet. The dasher moves up and down in the same even pace. Thump, thump, thump. A soft, muffled sound that seems to echo the slow beat of the farm itself. Inside the tall churn, the cream has thickened now. It clings to the wooden dasher in pale yellow clumps. She pauses, lifts the lid just enough to peer inside, then replaces it and resumes the motion. The children have finished their small tasks outside. The girl sets her herb pail on the wide kitchen table. Tiny green leaves spill slightly over the rim. Thyme mostly, with a few sprigs of winter savory still holding their sharp fragrance. She brushes her hands together, scattering fine bits of leaf onto the floorboards. The boy brings his row of acorns indoors, one handful at a time. He arranges them in a perfect circle on the hearthstones near the fire. The warmth makes the shells shine a little. He sits back on his heels to admire the pattern, then adds one more acorn to close the circle exactly. The mother finally stops churning. She removes the lid completely now. Inside, the butter has come. Small golden grains floating in thin buttermilk. She tips the churn slowly, pouring the liquid buttermilk into a separate crock for tomorrow's baking. With a long wooden paddle, she gathers the butter grains together. They cling and merge under gentle pressure until a single soft mass forms. She works it carefully, pressing out the last drops of buttermilk. The butter is cool to the touch, smooth, the color of fresh cream left in sunlight. She shapes it into a low mound on a clean wooden plate, then covers it with a damp linen cloth to keep it soft until supper. She washes the churn next, warm water from the kettle, a scrap of soft soap, slow circles with her hands. The oak staves gleam wet in the light from the window. She sets the churn upside down on a bench outside the lean-to door to dry in the mild afternoon air. A light breeze moves through the yard again. It carries the faint smell of wood smoke, dry grass, and distant pine from the woodlot beyond the meadow. The father has returned from the lower field. He carries a small bundle of cut sassafras roots tied with twine. The roots are thin and reddish, dug this morning from the edge of the woods where the trees grow thick. He lays them on the porch step to dry a little before bringing them inside. Sassafras tea will be welcome when the evenings grow longer and colder. The root smells sweet and spicy when the wind brushes over it. He steps into the house, removes his boots at the door so as not to track earth across the floor. His stockings are thick wool, darned many times at the heels. He hangs his hat again, runs a hand through his hair, then sits for a moment on the bench near the fire. The warmth soaks into his knees and hands. The collie follows him in, circles once, then settles with a long sigh on the rag rug by his feet. The family gathers loosely around the hearth now. No one speaks much. Words are not needed when the room is full of small, familiar sounds. The fire snaps quietly. The butter cloth flutters once when a draft slips under the door. The spinning wheel stands silent for the moment, its great wheel still. The girl has taken up a small piece of mending, her brother's. shirt sleeve torn at the elbow from climbing the apple tree last week. She threads a bone needle with homespun thread, the color of oatmeal. Her stitches are small and even, practiced many times. The boy watches the flames for a while, then finds a smooth river stone he keeps on the windowsill. He rubs his thumb over it in slow circles, feeling the cool surface warm gradually from his skin. Outside, the sun has reached its highest point. Shadows fall straight and short beneath the trees. The meadow grass stands very still now. The breeze has dropped away for a time. A single cloud, high and thin, drifts slowly across the wide blue sky. It casts no shadow on the ground below. The rooster scratches in the dust near the hen coop. A few hens follow him, clucking softly to themselves. Their feathers catch the light in soft browns and golds. One hen pauses to stretch a wing, then tucks it back neatly against her side. The mother rises to prepare the midday meal. It will be simple, as always. She slices thick pieces from yesterday's rye loaf. Dark, dense, with a firm crust that crackles under the knife. She spreads each slice with a little of the fresh butter. The butter melts slightly where it touches the warm bread. She sets out a bowl of dried apple slices saved from September's harvest. They are sweet and leathery, the color of honey. A small crock of pickled beets waits on the shelf. She spoons a few onto each trencher. The beets are deep red, glossy with vinegar brine. She adds a handful of shelled walnuts cracked open this morning. The nut meats are pale and ridged, rich with their own quiet oil. They eat at the long table again. The father cuts his bread into smaller pieces with his pocket knife. He chews slowly, eyes half closed against the brightness from the window. The children eat in the same unhurried way. The girl dips her bread into a little buttermilk left in her cup. The boy tries to balance a walnut half on the edge of his trencher, then eats it when it falls. No one hurries. The meal lasts as long as it needs to. When the trenchers are empty, the mother clears them away. She pours fresh water into the wash basin and cleans each piece with the same calm motions she used earlier. The father helps by drying the wooden plates with a linen towel. He folds it carefully when he is done and hangs it on its peg. After the meal, the family rests for a short time. The father stretches out on the wide bench near the fire, hands folded across his chest. His breathing slows to match the rise and fall of the flames. The mother sits again at the spinning wheel. She draws out a fresh roving of wool, attaches it to the spindle, and begins to treadle once more. The wheel turns with a gentle creak. Thread winds slowly onto the bobbin. The girl curls up on the trundle bed with a small quilt pulled over her knees. She holds the drop spindle loosely, letting it hang and twist on its own for a moment before she resumes her practice. The boy lies on his stomach near the hearth, chin on folded arms, watching the fire dance behind the andirons. The collie snores softly, paws twitching once in some quiet dream. The afternoon light slants through the window now. It falls in long, golden bars across the floorboards. Dust motes drift lazily in the beams, turning and turning without hurry. Outside, the world holds its breath. The meadow waits. The barn waits. The apple trees wait. Everything rests in the same slow peace that has held this small farm for so many years. The day is only half finished, yet already the light begins its gentle turn toward evening. No one minds. There is time enough for everything that needs doing. The hours stretch long and soft, like the shadows creeping slowly across the yard. The brief rest ends as softly as it began. The mother rises first from the spinning wheel. She smooths the front of her apron with both hands, then walks to the back door. The latch lifts with a quiet click. She steps onto the porch and breathes in the afternoon air. It carries the faint sweetness of drying grass and the distant, clean scent of the creek where willows bend low over the water. The sun has moved westward now. Its light slants through the branches of the big oak, making long patterns of gold and shadow across the yard. The shadows stretch gently toward the house, touching the porch steps in cool fingers. The father stands too. He stretches his arms overhead until his shoulders make a small pop, then lowers them slowly. He takes his hat from the peg again and steps outside. The collie wakes at the sound of boots on the floorboards. The dog rises, shakes himself once from nose to tail, sending a faint cloud of dust into the sunlight, then follows his master down the steps. They walk together toward the upper pasture where the sheep graze. The fence here is lower, made of split rails laid zigzag, easy to step over in places. A dozen or so sheep move slowly across the short grass. Their wool is thick now, ready for shearing in another month or two when the cold truly sets in. Most are a soft, creamy white, though one older ewe carries a touch of gray at her face and legs. She lifts her head as the father approaches, ears flicking forward, then returns to her slow cropping. He checks the water trough first. It is a long, hollowed log, kept full by a wooden spout from the spring higher up the hill. A thin stream trickles steadily into one end. The water is clear and cold, rippling only slightly where it meets the surface. He dips a hand in, feels the chill travel up his arm, then wipes his palm on his trousers. Satisfied, he walks the fence line. One post has settled a little. The rail above it sags. He finds a flat stone nearby, carries it back, and wedges it firmly under the base of the post. With both hands he rocks the post gently until it stands true again. The sheep watch him without concern, jaws moving in their endless, patient rhythm. The girl has come outside too. She carries a small basket woven from willow strips last spring. Inside are scraps of wool carded, but not yet spun. Short pieces too fine for the wheel. She scatters them along the edge of the herb garden for the hens to find later. The hens have wandered closer now. They scratch at the dry earth with quick, light movements, uncovering tiny seeds and insects. Their clucking is low and contented, rising and falling like a soft conversation. One hen, a speckled one with bright, red comb, pauses to dust herself in a shallow hollow near the garden gate. She fluffs her feathers, rolls, then stands and shakes vigorously. Fine dust drifts upward in the sunlight, sparkling for a moment before settling again. The boy stays near the house for a while longer. He has found a length of twine saved from a feed sack. He sits on the bottom porch step and ties small knots along its length. One knot, then another, then a longer space, then more knots. His tongue rests between his lips in concentration. When the twine is finished, he holds it up, lets it dangle, watches it swing slowly back and forth like a pendulum. The motion is hypnotic, gentle, repeating without end. Inside, the mother has returned to quieter work. She sits at the wide plank table with a pile of mending. There are stockings to darn, small holes at the heels and toes from daily wear. She threads a large-eyed needle with wool yarn the color of dry oak leaves. Her stitches are close and even, weaving over and under until the whole disappears beneath a neat patch of color. The fire has burned down to a steady bed of coals now. She adds one small log from the hearth pile. It catches quickly, sending a brief shower of sparks upward. The sparks fade before they reach the chimney, leaving only the soft orange glow. The afternoon deepens. The light turns a warmer gold. Shadows lengthen across the yard until they reach the barn wall. A few leaves drift down from the oak. Yellow, curled at the edges, floating slowly to the ground. One lands on the porch rail and stays there, trembling slightly when a breeze touches it. The breeze is cooler now, carrying the first hint of evening. It moves through the open barn doors, stirring the hay in soft whispers. The father finishes with the sheep. He scatters a handful of dried corn from his pocket near the trough. The sheep gather slowly, noses low, chewing with the same unhurried motion they have used all day. He watches them for a long minute, then turns back toward the house. The collie trots ahead now, tail waving gently from side to side. When they reach the porch, the father pauses to scrape mud from his boots on the iron scraper nailed to the step. Each scrape is deliberate, slow, removing every trace before he steps inside. The family comes together again in the main room. The mother has set a kettle of water over the fire to heat for washing. She slices more of the rye bread and spreads it with the fresh butter. A few dried apple slices go on each trencher, along with a small piece of cheese wrapped in cloth from the spring house yesterday. The cheese is mild, pale yellow, firm but yielding under the knife. They eat once more at the long table. The light from the window has softened. It falls across their hands and faces in pale honey tones. The children chew quietly. The father nods once to the mother, a small, private gesture of thanks for the simple meal. She returns the nod with the barest lift of her lips. After the food is cleared, the evening tasks begin without words. The father carries 2 buckets to the well. He lowers the bucket on its rope, hears the soft splash far below, then pulls it up hand over hand. Water sloshes gently against the wooden sides. He fills both buckets, carries them back to the house, and sets one near the hearth for tomorrow's cooking. The other goes to the lean-to, where the mother will use it for the evening wash. The girl helps gather eggs from the hen coop. The nesting boxes are lined with clean straw. She reaches under each hen carefully, feeling for the smooth, warm shells. Today there are 7 eggs, brown, speckled, 1 pale blue from the young hen. She cradles them in her apron and brings them inside. The mother sets them in a shallow basket on the shelf. Tomorrow some will go into cornbread, others saved for market day in the village. The boy feeds the fire one last time before supper preparations. He selects small sticks from the kindling pile, places them carefully across the coals. The wood catches with tiny pops and hisses. Flames rise again, low and steady, painting the room in shifting orange light. Shadows dance gently on the walls, long, soft, never sudden. Outside, the sky has begun to change. The gold fades to rose along the western horizon. The first stars appear, faint and far, one by one. A thin crescent moon hangs low above the meadow. Its light is silver and cool, touching the grass tips in pale shimmer. The whispering fields grow quieter now. Only the occasional rustle of a night creature, moving through the underbrush, breaks the stillness. The day winds down slowly, hour by gentle hour, every task completed, every small sound accounted for. The farm settles into evening the way it has settled into every evening before. No rush, no worry, only the calm certainty that tomorrow will come in the same soft way. Another ordinary day, another quiet turning of the seasons. The family moves toward supper now. The last gentle meal before the fire is banked, and the candles lit for bedtime, stories and sleep. The evening meal is prepared without haste. The mother moves to the hearth where the coals have settled into a steady, even red glow. She pushes them apart slightly with the iron poker, then sets the 3-legged spider skillet directly over the heat. A small piece of lard melts quickly in the pan, spreading a thin, shimmering layer across the iron. She pours in a thin stream of cornmeal batter she mixed earlier. Cornmeal. A little milk from this morning, 1 egg from the basket, and a pinch of salt. The batter hisses softly as it meets the hot surface. She spreads it gently with the back of a wooden spoon until it forms a large, even circle. The edges begin to bubble almost at once, tiny holes appearing and closing in slow succession. She waits, watching the surface until the bubbles near the center hold their shape without filling in again. Then she slides the thin wooden spatula underneath, lifts, and turns the cake with one smooth motion. The underside is golden, crisp at the very edges, soft in the middle. The warm, sweet smell of corn rises and fills the room, blending with the wood smoke already present. While the cake cooks, she slices more of the cheese, thicker pieces this time, and arranges them on a small pewter plate. She adds the last of the pickled beets from the crock, their deep color bright against the pale metal. A few more dried apple slices complete the simple supper board. The father has brought in a fresh pail of water from the well. He pours some into the iron kettle hanging on the crane over the fire. The water inside begins its slow warming again, small bubbles forming along the bottom long before any steam appears. He stirs the coals once more so the kettle sits evenly, then sits at the head of the table. The children wash their hands at the basin near the back door. The girl pours from the pitcher, letting the cold water run over her small palms. She rubs them together with a scrap of soft soap until a light lather forms, then rinses under the stream from the second pitcher. The boy does the same, splashing a little more than necessary, so droplets catch the firelight and sparkle as they fall. They dry their hands on the linen towel hanging from its wooden peg, the fabric already soft and worn from many such evenings. They take their places at the table. The trenchers are set again, 5 wooden plates, each waiting. The mother lifts the corn cake from the skillet with care, using both hands on the spatula so it does not tear. She cuts it into 5 even wedges, steam rising in gentle curls from each piece. She places one wedge on each trencher. The father nods once in quiet approval. They eat slowly, breaking the warm cake with their fingers, letting the pieces melt buttery soft on the tongue. The cheese follows, small bites, chewed many times. The beets add a sharp, tangy note that lingers faintly. The apples provide a quiet sweetness at the end of each mouthful. No one speaks much. The only sounds are the soft scrape of fingers against wood, the occasional sip of water from pewter cups, the low crackle of the fire settling deeper into its bed of coals. When the trenchers are cleared, the mother rises to wash them. She pours hot water from the kettle into the basin. Steam rises in slow, white clouds that drift toward the low ceiling beams. She scrubs each piece with a handful of clean straw dipped in the soapy water, then rinses in a second basin of plain warm water. The father dries again, running the linen towel over each surface until no drop remains. The children help by carrying the clean trenchers back to the shelf. Their small hands are careful, placing each one exactly beside the last so the stack remains even. With supper finished, the evening turns toward quieter things. The mother lights a second candle from the first. She sets it in the small pewter holder on the table, trimming the wick so the flame burns steady and tall without smoking. The light spreads farther now, touching the far corners of the room where shadows had begun to gather. It falls softly across the spinning wheel, the butter churn turned upside down to dry, the basket of wool still waiting by the stool. The father takes down the family Bible from its place on the high shelf. The cover is worn leather, darkened by years of hands, the edges soft and rounded. He opens it to a place marked with a thin strip of ribbon. Psalms, the pages slightly yellowed, the ink faded but still clear. He reads in a low, even voice, the words falling slow and measured into the quiet room. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. The children listen without fidgeting. The girl rests her chin in her hands, eyes fixed on the candle flame. The boy leans against his father's arm, breathing slow and even. The mother sits with her hands folded in her lap, the firelight painting warm colors across her face. The collie lies stretched full length on the rug, eyes half closed, ears twitching once when a log shifts in the fire. When the reading ends, the father closes the book gently and returns it to the shelf. He banks the fire for the night, pushing the coals into a neat pile, covering them with a layer of ash so they will hold their heat until morning. A faint glow remains beneath the ash, enough to kindle tomorrow's fire with ease. The room grows dimmer, the candle the only light now. The mother helps the children prepare for bed. She loosens the girl's braids, brushing the wheat-colored hair with slow strokes of the bone comb, until it falls smooth and shining in the candle glow. She ties it back with a bit of ribbon for the night. The boy yawns widely, rubbing his eyes with small fists. She lifts his nightshirt over his head, then helps him into the fresh one warmed near the hearth. The fabric smells faintly of wood smoke and lye soap. They climb into the trundle bed together. The mattress is thick with straw and corn husks, rustling softly as they settle. The quilt is heavy wool, pieced in simple squares of brown, blue, and faded red. The mother tucks it around them, smoothing the edges with gentle hands. She kisses each forehead in turn. First the boy, then the girl. "Good night, my dears," she whispers. They murmur sleepy replies, already half drifting. The parents move more slowly still. The father checks the door latch, then the windows, making sure each is secure against the night air. The mother blows out the candle with a soft puff. Darkness settles instantly, soft and complete, broken only by the faint red glow from the banked fire. They climb the narrow ladder to the loft bedroom above the main room. The bed there is larger, framed in oak, the mattress stuffed with feathers saved over many seasons. They lie down side by side, pulling the quilt high. The father's hand finds hers beneath the covers. They lie quiet, listening to the small sounds of the house settling, the creak of a beam cooling, the faint rustle of wind against the shingles, the distant hoot of an owl far off in the woods. Outside, the night has fully come. The crescent moon has climbed higher, its silver light falling across the meadow in thin, pale stripes. The fields whisper still, though more faintly now. A light frost begins to form on the grass tips, sparkling under the moon when the clouds part. The barn stands dark and silent. The hen coop is quiet, the hens roosting close together on their perches. The sheep lie in a loose circle in the upper pasture, heads tucked, breathing slow clouds into the cold air. Inside the farmhouse everything rests. The fire sleeps beneath its ash blanket. The spinning wheel waits motionless. The children breathe in soft, even rhythm below. The parents lie awake a little longer, letting the day's quiet events pass slowly through their minds. The milking, the chopping, the spinning, the meals, the small touches and glances that make up their ordinary life. No regrets, no hurry for tomorrow, only the deep, gentle certainty that the same soft pattern will greet them when morning comes again. Sleep draws near now, slow and patient as the turning of the seasons. It settles over the house like a warm blanket, covering every corner, every heart, every breath. The farm sleeps too, fields, barn, garden, orchard, all wrapped in the same calm night. And so the day ends, not with fanfare, but with the quiet closing of a well-worn door, leading gently into rest. The house lies wrapped in deep quiet now. Only the faintest sounds remain. A single cricket still chirps from somewhere beneath the porch boards. Slow, spaced notes that fade almost before they finish. The wind has dropped to nothing more than a breath against the shingles. It moves the smallest branches of the oak tree outside, making them tap once, twice, very softly against the eaves before falling still again. Inside, the banked fire gives off the gentlest warmth. A thin line of orange glow shows beneath the ash, steady and low, enough to keep the chill from creeping too close to the sleeping family. The air in the room carries the lingering scents of the day. Wood smoke, fresh butter, cornmeal, wool, and the clean earth smell that always clings faintly to the father's clothes, even after they are hung by the door. Up in the loft, the parents breathe in long, even rhythms. The father lies on his back, one arm folded beneath his head, the other resting across the quilt. His chest rises and falls without hurry. The mother curls slightly on her side, facing him, her hand still loosely held in his beneath the covers. Her breathing is softer, shallower, already deep in the first layers of sleep. The quilt is heavy enough that their bodies leave only the smallest impressions. In the feather mattress, the straw tick beneath rustles once when one of them shifts, then settles again into silence. Below in the main room, the children sleep soundly in the trundle bed. The boy has turned onto his stomach, one arm flung outward, fingers open and relaxed. His cheek presses into the linen pillowcase, mouth slightly parted. A faint curl of hair falls across his forehead. It moves a little with each slow breath. The girl lies on her back, hands folded neatly over the quilt as though still practicing the posture her mother taught her for prayers. Her braids have loosened during the night. A few strands fan across the pillow in pale gold threads. The quilt has slipped down to their waists. The mother had tucked it high, but small restless movements in sleep have pulled it lower. Neither child stirs. Their breathing is light and regular, matching the quiet pulse of the house around them. The collie dreams near the hearth. His paws twitch faintly every so often, chasing something unseen across open fields in his sleep. A low, soft whine escapes him once. Barely a sound. Then he sighs and settles deeper into the rag rug. The rug itself is made of old scraps braided together. Wool, linen, bits of homespun, worn thin in the center where he always lies. It smells of dog and smoke, and the faint lanolin of sheep wool. Outside, the night deepens further. The crescent moon has crossed most of the sky now. Its silver light falls in thin ribbons across the meadow. The frost has thickened a little more. Each blade of grass carries a delicate white edge that glimmers when the moonlight touches it. The haystacks stand like patient gray shapes in the distance, their outlines softened by the dark. A barn owl glides low over the upper pasture, wings silent, eyes wide and golden in the faint light. It perches for a moment on the top rail of the sheep fence, head turning slowly, listening. Then it lifts again and disappears toward the woods without a sound. The creek beyond the lower meadow runs low this time of year. Its water moves over smooth stones with a gentle murmur. Never loud, always present if you listen closely enough. The willows along its banks lean toward the current, their long leaves trailing in the shallows. A few late fireflies still flicker among them, though most have faded with the colder nights. Their tiny lights blink on and off in slow rhythm, like distant stars fallen to earth. Back at the farmhouse, the hours pass without mark. No clock ticks inside. The family has never owned one. Time is kept by the sun, the moon, the changing angle of light through the windows, the feel of the air, the length of shadows. Tonight the night is long and peaceful. The frost continues to settle, covering the garden rose in a thin, sparkling veil. The kale leaves curl a little tighter. The leeks stand straight, their white stems now rimed with white. A single drop of dew, or perhaps melted frost, slides slowly down a leek blade and falls to the earth without sound. In the barn, the cow stands dozing in her stall. Her weight shifts from one hind leg to the other every so often, a slow, rocking motion that makes the wooden partition creak faintly. The hay in her manger is half eaten. The rest lies scattered on the floor around her hooves. The air inside is warm from her body and the bodies of the few hens that roost on the high beams. They sleep with heads tucked under wings, feathers fluffed against the night chill. A mouse moves quietly along the base of the wall, pausing to nibble at a fallen grain of corn, then continuing on its way. The apple trees in the orchard stand motionless. Their slender trunks are wrapped in cloth strips that flutter only when the rarest breath of wind finds them. The buds wait patiently, small, hard, promising next spring's blossoms and fruit. One branch carries a single leaf that refused to fall. It hangs curled and brown at the very tip, trembling now and then, but never letting go. The night wears on. The stars wheel slowly overhead, bright in the clear, cold air. The great bear stands high, its stars steady and familiar. A meteor traces a brief silver line across the sky and vanishes. No one sees it. The farm sleeps through the small wonder, wrapped in its own deeper quiet. Toward the deepest part of the night, the frost reaches its fullest. Every surface outside carries a delicate white coating. The porch steps gleam faintly under the moon. The well bucket, left on its hook, has a thin rim of ice along the top edge. The iron pump handle is cold enough to burn bear skin if anyone were to touch it now. Inside, though, the house holds its warmth. The banked fire keeps the chill at bay. The quilts are heavy. The bodies beneath them give off their own gentle heat. The first faint gray appears in the eastern sky long before any color returns. It is not yet dawn, only the promise of it. A softening of the black into something less absolute. The cricket beneath the porch has fallen silent at last. The owl has returned to its hollow in the old oak beyond the creek. The sheep in the pasture stir one by one, rising stiffly, shaking frost from their wool. They stand close together for warmth, heads low, breathing small clouds that drift and disappear. Inside the loft, the father wakes first. He does not move at once. He lies still, eyes open in the dark, listening to the house breathe around him. The mother sleeps on beside him, her breathing unchanged. He feels the cool air that has slipped through the cracks around the window frame. It brushes his cheek like the lightest touch. He waits a little longer, letting the quiet hold him, then slowly sits up. The bed creaks under his weight. He swings his legs over the side, feet finding the cold floorboards of the loft. He reaches for his wool stockings folded on the chest at the bed's foot, pulls them on without hurry. He descends the ladder carefully, each rung taken one at a time. The wood is smooth under his palms. At the bottom, he pauses again, listening. The children still sleep. The collie lifts his head, eyes glinting in the faint red glow from the hearth, then lowers it again with a soft sigh. The father kneels at the hearth. He brushes the ash aside with his hand, careful not to scatter it. Beneath lies a small nest of live coals, orange and steady. He adds 2 thin pieces of kindling, then a third. He blows gently, once, twice, until tiny flames appear and catch. The new wood crackles softly. Light returns to the room in slow degrees. pushing the shadows back toward the corners. He stands, stretches his back with a quiet breath, then moves to the door. He lifts the latch, steps outside into the pre-dawn chill. The air is sharp and clean. Frost crunches faintly under his boots. The sky has turned the palest gray now, streaked with the thinnest threads of rose along the horizon. A new day is beginning. Slowly, gently, exactly as the last one did. The farm waits for it, patient and unchanged. Another ordinary morning is about to unfold, moment by soft moment, in the same calm rhythm that has carried this place through so many seasons. The father stands on the porch for several long minutes while the sky continues its slow change from gray to the softest rose. Frost still covers every surface in a thin, glittering layer. It clings to the porch railings, the wooden bucket left by the well, the blades of grass that bend slightly under their own weight. His breath rises in small white clouds that drift upward and disappear into the cold air. He pulls his wool coat closer around his shoulders, the homespun fabric heavy and warm against the morning chill. The collie joins him, pressing close to his leg, tail moving in slow, lazy arcs. Together they watch the first true light touch the eastern edge of the meadow. The haystacks catch the glow first, turning from gray to pale gold in quiet succession. Inside the house, the mother stirs at last. She feels the slight drop in warmth as the father opens the door earlier, the cool draft slipping under the loft floor. She sits up slowly, smoothing her nightcap back into place, then reaches for her shawl folded at the foot of the bed. It is thick wool, dyed a deep indigo many years ago, now softened to a gentle gray-blue from countless washings. She wraps it around her shoulders, descends the ladder with careful steps, each rung taken one at a time, so the wood does not creak too loudly and wake the children. At the bottom she pauses, listening. The boy's breathing is still deep and even. The girl has turned onto her side, one small hand curled near her cheek. The mother smiles the smallest smile, then moves to the hearth. The new fire the father started has grown a little. Flames lick quietly around the kindling, casting a warm circle of light across the floorboards. She kneels, adds 2 thicker pieces of oak from the pile beside the fireplace. The wood is dry and catches quickly, sending a brief shower of sparks upward before settling into a steady burn. She places the iron kettle on the crane once more, fills it from the bucket the father brought in last night. The water inside is cold. It will take its time to warm. While she waits, she sweeps the hearthstones with a small broom, made of bundled twigs. The ash from yesterday is soft and fine. She gathers it into a small pile to save for soap making later in the week. The children begin to wake as the room slowly warms. First, the girl opens her eyes, blinking against the soft light that now filters through the small window panes. She sits up, pulls the quilt around her like a cloak, then slips her bare feet to the floor. The boards are cool, but no longer icy. The fire has done its gentle work. She pads across to stand near her mother, watching the kettle without speaking. The boy wakes a moment later. He rubs his eyes with both fists, yawns widely, then rolls onto his back and stares up at the low ceiling beams for a long minute. Finally, he climbs out, dragging the quilt behind him like a long train, until the mother gently takes it from his hands and folds it at the foot of the trundle. The family gathers once more in the familiar morning rhythm. The mother measures cornmeal into the wooden bowl, adds salt, a spoonful of lard, then hot water from the kettle as soon as it begins to steam. She stirs slowly, the spoon moving in wide, lazy circles. The batter thickens under her hands. She shapes small cakes again, places them on the griddle that rests over the coals. Each one sizzles softly when it touches the iron. The smell of warming corn rises, mingling with the wood smoke and the faint, clean scent of frost still clinging to the father's coat as he steps back inside. He removes his coat and hangs it on the peg. His cheeks are reddened from the cold, his breath still visible for a moment in the warmer air of the room. He washes his hands in the basin, the water icy from the well bucket. Then he sits at the head of the table. The children take their places beside him. The mother brings the hot corn cakes to the table, one by one. She pours milk into the pewter cups. Milk from yesterday afternoon, kept cool in the spring house overnight. It is thick and creamy, with a thin layer of cream risen to the top. She skims a little onto each child's cake before setting the pitcher down. They eat in the same slow, unhurried way as every morning. The cakes are warm, the edges slightly crisp, the centers soft and steaming. The milk is cold against the warmth of the corn. The father cuts his cake into neat pieces with his knife. He chews each bite many times, eyes half closed, letting the simple flavors fill his mouth. The girl breaks hers in half, blows on the steam, then takes small bites. The boy tries to eat his in larger pieces at first, then slows when the mother gives him a gentle look. No words pass between them for a long while, only the quiet sounds of eating, the soft crackle of the fire, the occasional creak of the house settling in the warming air. When breakfast is finished, the mother clears the table. The father helps by carrying the empty cups to the basin. The children dry their own trenchers with the linen towel, small hands careful not to drop them. The mother pours warm water over the dishes, scrubs them slowly with soap and a bit of straw. The soap lathers lightly, smelling of herbs from the summer garden. She rinses each piece, sets them on the shelf to dry in the strengthening light from the window. Outside, the sun has fully risen now. The frost is melting in patches where the light touches it strongest. Tiny droplets form on every leaf, every blade of grass, catching the sun in brief sparkles before falling to the earth. The meadow glows with soft gold. The air is still crisp, but no longer biting. A light breeze moves through the yard, carrying the clean scent of wet grass and pine from the distant woodlot. The father steps out again, the collie at his heels. He walks first to the barn to check on the cow. She stands in her stall, chewing slowly on the last of yesterday's hay. He speaks to her in the same low voice. "Easy now, Bess." Then begins the morning milking. The rhythm is familiar, unchanging. Stream, pause, stream, pause. The milk hisses softly into the bucket, warm and foaming at the edges. When the bucket is full, he carries it carefully back to the house, setting it on the porch step to strain later through clean muslin into a larger crock. The mother has moved to the garden now. She kneels beside the row of leeks, brushing frost from the leaves with gentle fingers. The soil is damp and dark beneath the surface. She pulls one leek carefully, roots and all, shaking the earth loose. The white stem is thick and firm, the green tops still vibrant. She sets it in her apron pocket, then pulls another. These will go into the stew pot tomorrow. For today, they can rest in the cool pantry. The girl follows her mother outside. She carries the small willow basket again, this time to gather any late herbs that still hold green. A few sprigs of sage remain near the kitchen door, their leaves silver gray and velvety. She pinches them carefully, breathing in their strong, clean scent before placing them in the basket. The boy has gone to the woodpile. He selects small sticks for kindling, stacking them in a neat pile near the porch. His hands are small but sure. He knows exactly which pieces will catch quickly, and which are better saved for later. The morning unfolds without rush. Every task is small and deliberate. The father returns to the barn to fork fresh hay into the cow's manger. The hay is dry and sweet-smelling. Last summer's cutting. He spreads it evenly, watching the cow lower her head to eat with slow, satisfied movements. The hens scratch in the yard, following the girl as she scatters a handful of corn from the feed sack. Their clucking is soft and scattered, rising and falling like gentle waves. Inside, the mother has begun the day's spinning. She sits at the tall wheel, feet bare on the floorboard. She draws out a fresh roving of wool, attaches it to the spindle, and begins to treadle. The wheel turns with its low, steady hum. Thread winds slowly onto the bobbin, thin and even. The sound fills the room like a quiet lullaby, repeating without end. The light grows stronger through the window. It falls across the table in warm squares, touching the clean trenchers, the wooden bowl, the basket of herbs. Dust motes drift lazily in the beams, turning slowly in the still air. The house breathes with the family, slow, calm, complete in every ordinary moment. Another day has begun on the small farm in Colonial, Pennsylvania. The same fields wait. The same paths lead from house to barn to garden to meadow. The same gentle sounds rise and fall. Nothing changes quickly here. Everything moves at the pace of seasons, of sunrise and sunset, of hands working steadily through familiar tasks. And so the morning continues, soft and peaceful, carrying the family forward into the quiet hours ahead. The morning light has strengthened now, falling in long, warm bars through the small panes of glass in the windows. Each pane is slightly wavy, handmade years ago, so the light bends and softens as it enters the room. It touches the wide plank table, the spinning wheel, the stack of clean trenchers on the shelf, turning everything a gentle honey color. The mother continues her spinning without pause. Her foot moves the treadle in a slow, even rhythm. The great wheel turns with its familiar low hum, thread winding steadily onto the bobbin in thin, even strands. The wool roving in her hands feels soft and slightly oily still, carrying the faint, natural scent of the sheep from last spring's shearing. She draws it out with gentle fingers, letting the twist travel upward in a smooth spiral before it meets the spindle. Every so often she stops to wind the finished thread onto the bobbin with a few turns of the wheel by hand. The motion is practiced, automatic, peaceful. She does not hurry. There is no need. Outside, the father has moved to the lower meadow. The winter rye is growing steadily now, the green blades thicker than yesterday, though still short and tender. He walks the rows slowly, boots leaving faint impressions in the soft earth. The frost has melted completely where the sun has touched, leaving the ground damp and dark. In places, the soil clings to his soles in small clumps. He scrapes them off against a fence rail without stopping. He checks for signs of winter, kill any patches where the plants have browned or thinned, but the crop looks healthy. The rye has rooted well, holding the soil against the coming rains and snows. He nods to himself, satisfied, then continues along the fence line. One section has a loose rail near the bottom. He lifts it, resets it firmly into the post notches, then presses it down with the heel of his palm until it sits true. The wood is weathered silver gray, smooth under his hand from years of rain and sun. The collie follows at a distance, sometimes trotting ahead to sniff at a vole hole or a tuft of dried clover. His nose twitches, ears flick forward. Then he returns to the father's side, tail low and relaxed. The air is warming quickly now. The breeze carries the clean smell of wet grass, pine from the woodlot, and the faint, distant smoke of someone else's hearth fire miles away across the valley. A few crows call from the big oak near the creek, low, unhurried caws that drift across the open land. The father pauses to listen, then continues on. Back at the house, the girl has come inside to help her mother. She sits on the low stool beside the spinning wheel, holding a small handful of wool she has carded herself. Her cards are smaller than her mother's, made for little hands with handles worn smooth from use. She brushes the wool between the cards in slow, careful strokes, pulling it into a thin, even bat. The fibers align under the gentle pressure, soft and pale. She hands the finished bat to her mother without a word. The mother takes it, smiles the smallest smile, and attaches it to the roving already on the wheel. The girl watches the thread grow, fascinated by the way the twist travels upward like a living thing. She tries once more with her own drop spindle, letting it hang and spin between her fingers. The spindle turns slowly, then faster, then slows again as the thread lengthens. When it threatens to tangle, she stops, winds the thread onto the shaft, and begins again. No frustration shows on her face, only quiet patience. The boy has stayed outside a little longer. He sits on the porch step with his collection of acorns from yesterday. He has arranged them into patterns now. Circles, lines, small shapes that look almost like houses or fences. He adds one acorn, removes another, adjusts the spacing with a careful finger. The sun warms the back of his neck. A light breeze moves his hair, lifting the fine strands at his forehead. He looks up when a sparrow lands on the porch rail nearby. The bird hops twice, head tilting, then flutters away to the ground where it pecks at something invisible in the dust. The boy watches until it flies off, then returns to his acorns. The mother pauses her spinning to check the kettle. The water has come to a gentle simmer. Small bubbles rising steadily to the surface without boiling over. She pours a little into a wide basin, adds a handful of dried lavender buds saved from summer. The scent rises immediately, soft, floral, calming. She dips a clean cloth into the warm water, wrings it lightly, then carries it to the small mirror hanging on the wall near the door. The mirror is old, its silver backing spotted in places, but it still reflects clearly enough. She washes her face slowly, letting the warm lavender water run down her cheeks and neck. The cloth leaves her skin feeling soft and faintly scented. She dries with the linen towel, folds it neatly, and returns to her wheel. Mid-morning arrives without announcement. The sun stands higher now, shadows shortening beneath the trees and the haystacks. The meadow grass has dried completely. It stands tall and golden, whispering again whenever the breeze moves through. The sound carries across the yard, soft, endless, like distant water over stones. A few butterflies appear, small, pale ones with wings edged in black, drifting lazily from the garden to the meadow edge. They pause on the last blooms of the marigolds near the kitchen door, wings opening and closing slowly in the warmth. The father returns from the meadow. He carries a small bundle of sassafras roots he dug earlier from the edge of the woods. The roots are thin and reddish-brown, fragrant when broken. He lays them on the porch to dry a little more in the sun before bringing them inside for tea. He scrapes his boots on the iron scraper, then steps into the house. The warmth greets him at once. The fire, the spinning wheels hum, the lavender scent still lingering in the air. He hangs his hat, washes his hands in the basin, then sits on the bench near the hearth. The collie follows, circles once, and lies down with his chin on his paws. The family rests for a short time again. The mother stops the wheel, winds the last of the thread, then sits beside her husband. The girl curls up on the trundle bed with her drop spindle in her lap, letting it dangle idly. The boy brings his acorn patterns inside one handful at a time, arranging them on the wide windowsill where the sun can touch them. The light makes the shells gleam softly brown. No one speaks much. The quiet is comfortable, filled with small sounds. The fire's low crackle, the occasional creak of the house timbers warming, the distant call of a crow, the steady breathing of the family together in one room. The day moves forward at its own gentle pace. No task is large, no hour is rushed. Everything flows from one moment to the next. Milking done, spinning continued, small mending waiting, garden checked, fences firm. The farm holds them all in its slow, steady embrace. The fields whisper. The fire glows. The light shifts across the floorboards in soft, golden bands. Another ordinary mid-morning passes, calm and complete, leading quietly toward the gentle hours of afternoon. The midday sun now hangs directly overhead, its light pouring straight down through the clear October sky. Shadows have shrunk to small dark pools directly beneath the trees, the porch rail, the haystacks far across the meadow. The air has warmed enough that the last traces of morning frost have vanished completely, leaving the grass soft and springy underfoot. A gentle heat rises from the earth, carrying the dry, sweet scent of cured hay and sun-warmed pine needles from the distant woodlot. The whispering fields move in slow, rolling waves whenever the lightest breeze passes through. The sound is constant, yet never insistent. Soft sibilance that blends with the occasional cluck of a hen or the far-off low of the cow in her stall. The father has returned from the lower meadow and now stands near the barn doors. He leans against the wide frame, arms folded loosely across his chest, watching the yard without particular purpose. The collie lies stretched in a patch of sunlight just inside the barn threshold, paws extended, eyes half closed in contentment. A few flies buzz lazily around the open doorway, their wings catching brief flashes of gold as they circle. The father brushes one away from his face with a slow wave of his hand, then resumes his quiet watching. Nothing requires his immediate attention. The fences hold, the rye grows, the sheep graze in their upper pasture without straying. He allows himself this small pause, letting the warmth soak into his shoulders and the back of his neck. Inside the house, the mother has set aside her spinning for the moment. The wheel stands silent, its great rim still, thread wound neatly onto the bobbin in even layers of pale gray wool. She moves to the long table and begins preparations for the midday meal. It will be simple again, as every meal is. Nothing wasted, nothing extravagant, everything familiar and comforting. She slices the last of the rye loaf from yesterday, the knife moving through the dense, dark bread in slow, deliberate strokes. The crust crackles faintly under the blade. The interior is firm yet yielding. She spreads each thick slice with a generous layer of the fresh butter made earlier. The butter is still cool from the crock, softening only where it meets the warm bread. Small golden flecks melt into the surface, leaving a faint sheen. She sets out the remaining dried apple slices, honey-colored, leathery, sweetly tart. A few walnuts still wait in their small bowl. She cracks 2 more with the flat of the knife, picks out the pale meats, and scatters them across the trenchers. The nut pieces are ridged and rich, their oil already beginning to glisten in the warm room. She spoons the last of the pickled beets onto each plate, the vinegar, bright and sharp, against the deep red of the roots. The crock is nearly empty now. She makes a quiet, mental note to prepare more when the next batch of roots is ready. From the garden, the children come in from the yard as the smell of buttered bread drifts through the open door. The girl's cheeks are flushed from the sun. A few strands of wheat-colored hair have escaped her braids and cling to her forehead. She brushes them back with the back of her hand, then washes at the basin near the door. The boy follows, hands dusty from his acorn arrangements, small bits of shell clinging to his palms. He scrubs them carefully with soap and water, splashing just enough to make tiny rainbows in the sunlight that falls across the basin. They dry on the shared linen towel, then take their places at the table without being called. The father steps inside last. He removes his hat, hangs it on the peg, then washes his own hands in the same basin. The water is still warm from the kettle the mother poured earlier. He sits at the head of the table. The family bows their heads for a brief, silent grace. The same words spoken in the father's low voice every day. Then they eat. No hurry. No conversation beyond the soft scrape of fingers against wood, the quiet crunch of walnuts, the occasional sip of water from pewter cups. The bread is broken by hand. Pieces passed if someone reaches first. The butter melts further with each bite, blending with the nutty rye and the faint sweetness of the apples. The beets add their bright tang at intervals, cleansing the palate before the next mouthful. The children chew slowly, imitating their parents without thought. The girl saves her last walnut half for the very end. The boy tries to balance an apple slice on his trencher edge, then eats it when it falls. When the trenchers are empty, the mother rises first. She gathers the wooden plates and carries them to the basin. The father helps by bringing the cups and the small pewter bowl. The children dry their own trenchers again, small hands steady, placing each one exactly in the growing stack on the shelf. The mother pours fresh hot water from the kettle over the dishes. Steam rises in slow white spirals, carrying the faint lavender scent that still lingers from her morning wash. She scrubs with the soft soap and a handful of clean straw, rinsing each piece in the second basin. The father dries methodically, running the linen towel over every surface until no moisture remains. The clean dishes are returned to their places, the table wiped with a damp cloth, the floor swept lightly of any crumbs that fell. With the meal finished, the family settles into the quietest part of the day. The mother returns to her spinning wheel. The treadle begins its gentle motion once more. The wheel hums low and steady, thread winding in its endless spiral. The father stretches out on the wide bench near the hearth. He folds his hands across his chest, closes his eyes, and lets his breathing slow to match the fire's quiet rhythm. The collie follows him inside, circles twice, then lies at his feet with a long, contented sigh. The girl curls on the trundle bed with a small piece of mending. Her brother's stocking this time, a tiny hole at the toe from yesterday's play. She threads her bone needle with wool yarn, stitches small and close, weaving the hole closed without hurry. The boy sits cross-legged on the floor near the window. He has brought in a smooth river stone he keeps on the sill. He rubs his thumb over its cool surface in slow circles, feeling the familiar dips and ridges warm gradually under his touch. He watches dust motes drift in the sunlight, turning lazily like tiny planets in their own quiet orbits. The afternoon light slants now, growing softer, more golden. It falls across the room in long bars that creep slowly across the floorboards. The spinning wheel's hum fills the space like a heartbeat. Low, regular, soothing. Outside, the meadow continues its gentle whispering. A single cloud, high and thin, drifts across the sky without casting any real shadow below. The hens scratch contentedly near the garden gate, uncovering small seeds in the warm earth. One hen stretches a wing wide, holds it for a moment, then tucks it neatly back against her side. The sparrows hop along the porch rail again, pecking at invisible crumbs, their movements quick but never startled. The day holds its breath in this gentle middle hour. No task presses, no sound jars. Everything rests in the same calm certainty. The house, the barn, the fields, the family. The sun moves westward without haste. The shadows lengthen by degrees. The light turns from bright gold to warm amber. The farm breathes slowly around them, every moment soft and complete, leading quietly toward the fading hours of afternoon and the peaceful close of another ordinary day. The afternoon light has softened further now, turning from bright amber to a warm, muted gold that spills across the room in long, gentle pools. Shadows stretch eastward beneath the trees and along the porch, reaching farther with each passing minute. The sun hangs lower in the sky, its rays slanting through the small window panes at a shallower angle, catching every speck of dust in slow, drifting motion. The air inside the house feels thick with accumulated warmth. The fire's steady glow, the bodies of the family close together, the lingering scent of buttered bread and lavender water from earlier. Outside, the breeze has picked up just a little, moving through the meadow grass in wider, slower waves. The whispering sound grows slightly deeper, more layered, as thousands of dry blades brush against one another without hurry. The mother continues her spinning for a while longer. Her foot rocks the treadle in the same unvarying rhythm. The wheel turns, the spindle fills, thread winds in even, pale layers. She pauses now and then to splice a new roving onto the end of the old one. Fingers dampened slightly, with water from a small bowl beside her, twisting the fibers together until the join is invisible. The hum of the wheel is the constant background to the room, low and soothing, like the distant murmur of the creek on a still day. When the bobbin is nearly full, she stops, winds the last length by hand, then sets the wheel aside for the day. She smooths the front of her apron, stands slowly, and stretches her back with a quiet breath. The father has risen from the bench near the hearth. His rest has left faint lines pressed into his cheek from the rough wool of the cushion. He rubs them away with the heel of his hand, then walks to the door. The collie lifts his head, watches him for a moment, then follows as the father steps outside. The porch boards are warm underfoot from the day's sun. He stands at the rail, hands resting lightly on the weathered wood, looking out across the yard and the fields beyond. The meadow glows in the late light, every blade tipped with gold. The haystacks cast long purple shadows that stretch almost to the barn. A few late birds circle high overhead, crows mostly, their calls faint and spaced far apart. The father breathes deeply, filling his lungs with the clean, cooling air. It carries the scent of drying grass, faint wood smoke from their own chimney, and the earthy promise of coming frost. He walks first to the well. The bucket hangs on its hook, rope coiled neatly beside it. He lowers the bucket slowly, hand over hand, listening to the soft splash far below when it meets the water. The rope creaks faintly against the wooden pulley. He pulls it up again, water sloshing gently against the sides. The surface ripples in small circles that catch the golden light. He carries the full bucket to the porch and sets it down on the wide step. Some of the water will be used for evening washing, the rest left to settle overnight in the cool air. The children have come outside too. The girl carries her small willow basket, now holding a few more sprigs of sage and a single late marigold she found still blooming near the garden fence. The flower is bright orange, petals slightly curled at the edges from the day's warmth. She holds it carefully by the stem, breathing in its sharp, peppery scent before placing it in the basket with the herbs. The boy has found a fallen branch from the big oak. Short, smooth, broken clean at one end. He sits on the bottom, step, and uses his small pocket. knife to whittle, the end into a blunt point. Shavings curl away in thin spirals, pale and fragrant with fresh wood. He works slowly, knife moving in small, careful strokes, tongue resting between his lips in concentration. The collie lies nearby, chin on paws, watching the boy without moving. The mother steps out onto the porch as well. She carries a clean linen cloth and a small crock of soft soap. She sits on the bench beside the door, dips the cloth into the fresh well water, then works a little soap into the fabric. She washes the porch rail first, slow circles, wiping away the faint dust and pollen that have gathered there. The wood gleams wetly under her hands, dark and smooth. She moves to the windows next, reaching up to clean the small panes one by one. The glass is thin, slightly wavy. She wipes gently so as not to press too hard. When she finishes, the windows catch the last of the sun, reflecting golden light back into the yard like small mirrors. The light begins to fade in earnest now. The gold deepens to rose along the western horizon. Shadows merge and lengthen until the yard lies half in twilight. A thin chill returns to the air, creeping up from the ground where the sun no longer touches. The meadow grass stills as the breeze drops away. The whispering fades to near silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of a leaf falling from the oak. The father gathers an armful of kindling from the pile behind the house. Small sticks, dry and straight, easy to snap if needed. He carries them inside, kneels at the hearth, and adds them to the coals that have burned low during the afternoon. He blows gently until flames appear again, small at first, then steadier. The fire brightens the room once more, pushing back the gathering dusk. The mother follows him in, sets the soap crock and cloth aside, then moves to the table to begin supper preparations. She lights the second candle from the first, trims the wick so the flame burns clean and tall. The two candles together cast a warm, steady glow across the long table. She slices more rye bread, spreads it with butter, adds the last dried apples and a few pieces of cheese saved from the spring house. The children come inside, faces flushed from the cooling air. They wash at the basin, dry on the towel, then take their places. The father sits last, hanging his hat before he does. They eat in the familiar quiet. Bread broken by hand, cheese cut with the knife, apples chewed slowly. The fire crackles softly behind them. The candles flicker once when a draft slips under the door, then steady again. After the meal, the dishes are washed and dried in the same calm way. The mother pours hot water, scrubs with soap, rinses, hands each piece to the father to dry. The children help carry the clean trenchers to the shelf. When everything is tidy, the family gathers near the hearth once more. The father opens the Bible to the same ribbon-marked place. He reads in his low, even voice. More psalms, words that have been spoken in this room for years. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. The children listen, eyes on the fire or the candle flames. The mother sits with hands folded, breathing slow and deep. The collie lies close, ears twitching faintly at the sound of the father's voice. When the reading ends, the book is closed gently and returned to its shelf. The father banks the fire again, coals pushed together, ash scattered over the top to hold the heat through the night. The mother helps the children prepare for bed. Braids loosened, hair brushed, nightshirts warmed by the hearth, quilts tucked high around small shoulders, kisses on foreheads, soft good nights whispered. The children settle quickly, breathing, slowing into sleep almost at once. The parents climb to the loft. They lie side by side under the heavy quilt. The father's hand finds hers in the dark. They listen to the house settle. The small creaks, the faint wind against the roof, the distant hoot of an owl. The candles are blown out below. Darkness comes soft and complete. The farm rests. Fields silent. Barn quiet. Family breathing together in slow rhythm. Another day has ended gently, without rush or fanfare. The same peace waits for tomorrow. Sleep comes naturally now, deep and calm, carrying everyone into the quiet night. The loft bedroom lies wrapped in perfect stillness now. The quilt rises and falls in the slowest possible rhythm. One long breath in, one long breath out, shared between the parents as they drift deeper into rest. The father's hand remains, loosely clasped around the mother's, beneath the covers. Neither has moved since they settled. Their breathing has blended into one gentle, unbroken sound that matches the faint creak of the roof timbers cooling in the night air. The small window in the gable end lets in only the thinnest silver thread of moonlight. It traces a pale line across the floorboards and touches the edge of the chest, where their folded clothes wait for morning. No sound rises from below. The children sleep without turning, small bodies curled beneath their heavy wool quilt, faces smooth and peaceful in the complete dark. The trundle bed holds them close together, straw mattress rustling only once, when the boy sighs softly in his sleep and settles again. The collie has shifted nearer the hearth. His breathing is deeper now, paws no longer twitching with dreams, only the slow rise of his ribs under the worn rag rug. Outside, the farm has entered the deepest part of the night. The crescent moon has sunk low behind the western trees, leaving the sky to the stars alone. They stand sharp and bright in the cold, clear air, hundreds of tiny points of light scattered across the black dome above the meadow. The frost has returned in earnest, thicker than the night before, coating every surface in a delicate white veil. The grass blades bend under the weight of it. The haystacks gleam faintly where starlight touches their rounded tops. The barn roof carries a thin sheen that catches the smallest glimmers. The apple trees stand motionless, their cloth-wrapped trunks pale in the dark, buds still waiting beneath the frost for seasons yet to come. A single owl calls once from far in the woods, low, mournful, then silent. The creek murmurs steadily over its stones, the only continuous sound in the wide quiet. The hen coop is dark and warm inside. The hens perch close on their roosts, feathers fluffed, heads tucked, breathing small clouds that vanish in the still air. The cow dozes standing in her stall, one hind leg resting, jaw working slowly in faint rumination even in sleep. The sheep in the upper pasture lie in a loose cluster, heads tucked against flanks, wool thick enough to hold their warmth through the coldest hours. No creature moves unnecessarily. The farm holds its breath with them, all waiting for the slow turn toward dawn. Inside the house, the banked fire sleeps beneath its blanket of ash. A single tiny ember glows deep within the pile, steady and patient, ready to wake at the first breath of morning. The iron kettle on the crane has cooled. Its sides are dark and smooth, a faint warmth still radiating into the room. The spinning wheel stands silent in its corner, thread wound tight, waiting for tomorrow's gentle hum. The long table gleams faintly in the dark. Trenchers stacked neatly, pewter cups turned upside down on the shelf. Every object rests exactly where it belongs, placed there by familiar hands at the end of another ordinary day. The hours pass without measure. No clock ticks, no bell rings. Time is kept only by the slow wheeling of the stars overhead and the gradual cooling of the earth beneath the frost. The night deepens, then holds steady. Then, almost imperceptibly, begins its turn toward morning. The eastern sky softens first. Not yet light, but no longer absolute black. A faint gray edge appears along the horizon, thin as a drawn thread. The stars dim one by one, retreating as the sky prepares to receive the day. Inside the loft, the father stirs first again. He does not rise at once. He lies still, eyes open in the faint gray that now filters through the gable window. He listens to the house, the soft breathing of his wife beside him, the deeper quiet from the room below, the distant first call of a rooster waking far across the valley. His hand tightens once around hers, then releases gently. He sits up slowly, the mattress shifting beneath him with a faint rustle of feathers and straw. He reaches for his stockings, pulls them on, then stands. The floorboards are cold under his feet. He moves carefully down the ladder, each rung taken without sound. At the bottom, he kneels at the hearth once more. He brushes the ash aside with careful fingers. The ember glows brighter now, small and steady. He adds the thinnest pieces of kindling, blows softly until flame appears, tiny at first, then growing, catching the next stick, then the next. The fire wakes quietly, light spreading in a warm circle across the floor. He places 2 small logs across the flames, watches them catch, then stands. The room brightens by slow degrees. Shadows retreat toward the corners. He steps to the door, lifts the latch, opens it just enough to see the sky. The gray has deepened to pale rose along the east. Frost sparkles on every surface in the first weak light. The meadow lies still, white and silent. The air is sharp and clean, carrying the promise of another clear day. The collie rises stiffly, stretches, then pads to his side. They step onto the porch together. Frost crunches under boots. Breath rises in white clouds that drift and fade. Inside, the mother wakes to the faint crackle of the new fire. She descends the ladder, wraps her shawl around her shoulders, moves to the hearth without hurry. The children will wake soon. First the girl, then the boy, drawn by the returning warmth and the familiar sounds of morning. The kettle will be filled again. The cornmeal will be measured. The day will unfold in the same gentle way. Milking, spinning, small tasks in the garden, quiet meals at the long table, stories by the fire before sleep returns. Nothing has changed. The farm endures in its slow, steady rhythm. The fields whisper when the breeze returns. The fire glows. The family moves through their ordinary hours together. Hands working, voices low, glances soft and knowing. Season follows season. Year follows year. Each day ends as this one did. Gently, quietly, wrapped in peace. And so the story rests here, in the calm certainty of another dawn on a small colonial farm in Pennsylvania. The same soft light will touch the porch steps. The same slow tasks will begin. The same quiet love will hold the family close through every ordinary moment. Sleep well now, dear listener. Let the whispering fields carry you gently into dreams. The farm waits, patient and unchanged, for whenever you wish to return.